For today's review, we have set 76434, Aragog in the Forbidden Forest, containing 195 pieces, retailing for $20 and released in 2024. The set is still available on Lego.com, but if you want to take a look at the prices on Bricklink anyways, the average price new is going to be $20, and the average price used is going to be $0 because there is none available at the moment. For minifigures, we get 2 minifigures total. From left to right, we have Ron Weasley, then Harry Potter, both having a scared face on them. And flipping both minifigures around, we do get some back torso printing for both minifigures, as well as some alternate faces, which is more of a smiling / neutral face going on there for both of them. So here we have our only side build for this set, which is essentially part of the Forbidden Forest. Now, there's nothing crazy going on here. As you can see, you have some tree branches in the back kind of coming out of the soil. You have the webbing here where we have 2 spiders. We have one on the actual webbing and one down here next to the webbing. So 2 brown spiders, which is pretty cool, and then some leaf elements. What's cool about this set, though, is that you can actually attach this piece to 2 other sets, one being a poly bag, that being Draco Malfoy in the Forbidden Forest, which we have access to right here. So you can attach this. What I will say, though, is that there is some issues with orientation. This set makes you build it like this, where you have the clip on the left side and then the attachment area on the right side, when everything else, such as this one, you can see has the clip on the right side here and then the attachment point on the left side. And this is the same as in the other set where this is supposed to connect to, that being the magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest, which I have here as well. So let me move that here, and you can see, if I move these real quick, down here you can see that the attachment points are the same as the Malfoy one, where they have the clip on the right side and then they have the attachments here on the left side, and that's how it is for every single compartment here. So why I bring that up and why I think that's weird is because of this one. It has the clip on the left side and then the attachment on the right side, which makes it seem weird. There's essentially, you can connect it. Okay, you can connect it here, but it's going to be backwards, right? So now it's connected like this and it's backwards. And then if you flip it inwards, we'll just go ahead and remove these minifigures just so that they're not in the way or falling around. And then you can, bring these in and try to connect them. Let me just bring this around actually. So then if you bring them inwards and then you connect these pieces, then you have the spiders on the interior, when in reality, for everything else, everything is on the exterior, right? So that's kind of interesting that they decided to go this route. And again, you can connect, again, these minifigures are just going to keep falling, so let me just remove that one. Again, you can connect the Draco Malfoy in the Forbidden Forest as well. So this one looks like it looks outwards, so that one's fine. Normally, yeah, that one's fine. That one looks outwards. So see, you can see that this one looks outwards. Everything else looks outwards as well, such as the spiders. And then, everything else doesn't really matter orientation wise, but I would assume that all these plates that are kind of sticking out a little bit are going to be outwards anyways. And then, the one outlier being the spiders are facing inwards in this case. So that's kind of weird that the instructions have it that way. And then you can see here, you can connect it and make the forest. This is essentially the biggest you can make the forest with the sets you are given. You could buy more sets and make it even bigger if you want, but this is, if you get all 3 sets that I mentioned, this is as big as you can make it. So only 2 more compartments here to add. But again, it's weird that they decided to put the clips on the wrong sides. This is how it is in the instructions. It's an easy fix. You just flip them essentially, so it's not horrible. But I usually like to follow the instructions and just keep it that way. But again, you can connect this piece, this side build from the Aragog in the Forbidden Forest to magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest, which is right there, or also to Draco Malfoy in the Forbidden Forest, which is this set right here. So that's pretty cool that you can do all that. So finally, here we have the main build for the set, which is Aragog himself. And the first thing that I wanted to take a look at before taking a look at all the details is how big he is. He's a lot bigger than I thought he was going to be, which I think is a good thing. I really enjoy how big he is, but just to show you guys how big he is, I'm going to compare him to the box he came in. So this is the box, right? And if you just kind of line him up with the end here, you can see that some of his legs stick out you know, pretty good ways past the box there. If I can get a better view of that, let me just move this a little bit higher up, and then you can see his legs stick out pretty far past the box, and I'm trying to have him in the middle there. And then if I hold him, you know, on the end, essentially lining him up with the box on the end, you can see how long he is. So he's pretty big. He's a lot bigger than I was expecting, but again, I think that's a good thing in this case. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at him here. The color scheme, I think it's good. The only thing I don't like is the black, how much black there is. I think the black on the fangs is good. Obviously, his eyes make sense, but the joints here, I'm not really a big fan of it. It just doesn't seem to fit in with the color scheme at all. So that I'm not a big fan of. I'm okay with the joint in there. That's perfectly fine. And this, I don't really like either. So that's one thing that can be subjective. So I'll let you guys decide on whether you like that stuff or not. But for me personally, I don't really like the black. The tan is perfectly fine. I feel like that helps break up the brown a lot, so that makes sense to me, having that color scheme in there. Obviously I wouldn't have wanted an all brown spider. It just would have looked off. And I'm okay with the darker brown in there. I wish they would have used it a little bit more, just to give it like a little bit of a shading in there, or just break up the normal bright brown here a little bit more. So I'm a big fan of the tan and brown, not too big of a fan of the black, mainly in the joints, right? Mainly in the joints. Everything else is fine though. Now the next thing I want to talk about is essentially the articulation in this thing. So you have the butt here, so you can move that up and down on this little ratchet hinge, whatever you want to call it. I would say it's a ratchet joint, but you can move it up that far, which is pretty nice. And then that's the middle, and then this is the bottom. So you can move it, you know, in three different spots, which is pretty good. I mainly like to keep it like that. It just looks a little bit more menacing. Then you have the legs. So these legs, first of all, you can rotate these things. So you can rotate the very ends, which is nice. So you can, you know, kind of turn the legs if you would like to. I don't know if that's common in spiders, but you can do that. Then you have the hinges in each and every leg. So you can, you know, push this up and then push it down and essentially onto itself. So there is limitation, obviously, but that's only when it starts hitting the brick itself. So they collide right there, so you can't push it further back. And then down here they collide again, mainly this colliding with this, but this would collide you know, in a couple more turns there. But you can do that with every leg. So something you could do is, you know, potentially have Aragog dead here, so you can turn all these legs onto himself, kind of like a spider would die, and then all the legs are up, and then now he's, you know, he's deceased. So that's pretty cool that you can do that. I think that's a very nice touch. And then this is what he looks like with all those legs bent under him and then just kind of sitting above. So let's put those back here real quick, and now the other four. There we go. Okay, so this is his normal stance. Obviously a little bit of there we go. That's more normal. Other than that, there is the face area. So there's these up here, and I'm not too sure about the anatomy of a spider, right? But these are movable up here. So this is like what they could potentially grab their prey with. And then they got the fangs as well. So these just go back and forth here. Nothing crazy, but you know, it perfectly makes sense for that to be there. And then obviously these again. And something you can do is, I don't know if they intended for this, but it is possible. If you take Ron or any other minifigure you got, you can put him right here, and let me move his hands up. Actually, you can put him right here and actually essentially have Aragog hold him. This doesn't really happen in the film, but you know, it is pretty cool that you can do this, especially if you're picking this up for something other than Harry Potter. You know, just using him as a monster in some type of fantasy city. I think that would be a very cool thing to do. That's kind of one of the reasons I picked this setup in particular. There's also this printed plate, which I think looks very good right there. So you do get that as a print, and that's really the only thing that's a print on here. No other stickers. That's the only print you get, which is pretty cool. And you know, it fits. I like it, and you know, I think overall the spider is very well done. So again, here's everything you get in set 76434, Aragog in the Forbidden Forest, containing 195 pieces, retailing for $20 US and released in 2024. Now, if you want to talk about price per piece, the set comes at about 10 cents per piece, which is pretty good. Of course, I always care about the end product the most though, so in the end, do I think that what you get here is worth the $20 US? And I think in this case, I do. There could have been some improvements though, I will say that. First, to the minifigure selection, obviously Harry and Ron make sense. They're perfect. They could have had Fang in here. So Hagrid's dog, they could have had Fang. That would have made a lot of sense, specifically for recreating these specific scenes. Now, you could also argue that you could have the car in here, the Flying Ford Anglia, but there is a separate set for that. And I believe there's no reason to make one set more expensive just to have more in it. Especially in this case, I think the Flying Ford Anglia, which I reviewed last week, can stand on its own as a set, and is, you know, it would bring people to buy that one. And then, you know, if people want to get this one as well, you know, that's a possibility as well. So they're cheaper sets overall in the sense that, you know, it's two separate sets. So there's no reason to include that in here. In my opinion, I think what they did here is fine. Now, there's also the side build here. There's one thing that I'm, you know, kind of annoyed about. So the spiders here, they're small, right? They're baby spiders. The scene shows a lot of kind of small spiders and big spiders. Nothing bigger than Aragog though. So I feel like they could have done one of two things here. Okay, they included 2 spiders here. That's perfectly fine. They should have gave us 2 to 3 more of these at least, because in that scene, you know, they're getting chased by a ton of spiders. So getting 2 to 3 more of these would have made it seem more like that. The other thing they could have done is given us, you know, built spiders, kind of like Aragog, but on a smaller scale. So that would have been nice as well. So they could have been chasing him. So then they would have had, you know, 2 different size spiders, not including Aragog. So they would have the molded one and then some smaller built ones, but that are closer to the size of Ron and Harry. So that would have been nice, I feel like. It could have been very cool, but, you know, it's not really necessary, especially since they gave us these 2. But since they didn't include those builds, I feel like giving us more of these should have been something they should have done for sure, because that just makes more sense, especially if you want to recreate some of that scene a little bit more. Now, Aragog himself, I think he's done essentially perfectly. The only issues I have with him are, you know, the inclusion of black as a color scheme color. So, you know, it's mainly the hinges. I don't really care too much for this in the inside being black, or the little spike in the back being black. Well, actually, that I would like to be brown as well. So that I do mind. I wish that was brown, and that these little hinges in here were all brown as well. But I don't believe there is a recolor of those. I think I've only seen them in black and gray. So, you know, I don't think they would have recolored that for this specific set. But the tan, though, that makes sense. I feel like that helps break up the brown. So I like that they use the tan, and then the black in the fangs is perfectly fine for me. That makes sense. But again, the black in here, I don't really like too much, but I don't see them recoloring that for this specific set. But in the end, I think everything is good. I feel like this set is still worth the $20 US. The Aragog build is great. The little side build here for the Forbidden Forest is great. My only complaint really, besides, you know, maybe including Fang, is just more spiders. I feel like we should have definitely gotten at least 2 to 3 more spiders, and that would have made the set a little bit better, in my opinion. But I think right now it's still good. It's still really good. So in the end, I do think this set is worth it. Now that's going to conclude my review of set 76434, Aragog and the Forbidden Forest. If you enjoyed the review, consider liking the video. And if you are enjoying the content overall, consider subscribing. It is completely free and helps me out in the long run. Now, as always, I will see you guys in my next video.